The ship from Earth came out of hyperspace like a stone dropping into still water. It was small compared to the massive stations and cruisers that filled the space around Valoria Station. The humans inside had no idea that their arrival would change everything. Commander Elena Vasquez stood at the front window of the ship and looked at the station. It was beautiful. Lights covered every surface. Ships of all shapes and sizes moved around it like fish swimming near a reef. This was the center of galactic trade. This was where 12 different species came together to do business and talk politics. Earth had finally been invited to join. "Remember the training," Elena said to her small team. "We are guests here. We represent all of humanity. Be polite. Be careful, and try not to break anything." Her team laughed. There was Lieutenant Sarah Chun, a security officer with short black hair and calm eyes. There was Dr. Samuel Okonkwo, a tall man from Nigeria who studied alien life. There was Private Miguel Rodriguez, young and eager, who had never been off Earth before this mission. And there was Ambassador Yuki Tanaka, a small woman with gray hair who had spent 30 years as a diplomat. The docking process was smooth. The human ship connected to the station with a soft click. Air rushed in to fill the connection tunnel. And then the doors opened. Elena was the first to step onto Valoria Station. The welcoming party was waiting for them. There were 20 aliens standing in a line. Most of them were Valorians, the species that ran this station. They were tall and thin, almost 8 feet high, with long legs that looked like they might snap in a strong wind. Their skin was pale and almost see-through. Elena could see blue and purple colors moving under the surface. The leader of the group stepped forward. His name was Delegate Vethron, and he had been assigned to help the humans during their visit. "Welcome to Valoria Station," he said. His voice came through a small translator device on his chest. "We are honored to receive the representatives of Earth." Ambassador Tanaka bowed slightly. "Thank you, Delegate. We are grateful for this opportunity." The formal words were nice. But Elena noticed something strange. The aliens were not looking at the humans the way she expected. They were not curious or friendly. They looked nervous. Some of them looked scared. One of the Valorians in the back of the group was shaking. Elena tried to ignore it. Maybe this was normal. Maybe Valorians always shook like that. She did not want to judge. The welcoming party led the humans through the station. The halls were wide and tall, made of some kind of white metal that reflected the light. Aliens of many different species walked past them. Elena saw creatures that looked like giant insects, others that floated on clouds of gas, and some that seemed to be made entirely of crystal. Every single one of them moved out of the way when the humans came close. At first, Elena thought they were just being polite, but then she saw how far they moved. They pressed themselves against the walls. They turned around and walked the other direction. One small creature, something like a purple ball with legs, actually ran away making a high-pitched screaming sound. "Is something wrong?" Elena asked Vethron. The Valorian's skin turned a deep purple color. Elena would later learn that this meant embarrassment. No, he said quickly. "Everything is fine. Your rooms are this way." The human delegation was given a set of rooms near the center of the station. The rooms were large and comfortable, with soft beds and big windows that looked out into space. But the beds were too soft. The chairs were too light. When Private Rodriguez sat down on one, it cracked under his weight. "Sorry," he said, jumping up. "I did not mean to break it." Vethron stared at the broken chair. His skin had gone completely white. "That chair," he said slowly, "was rated for 300 galactic weight units." "I don't know what that means," Rodriguez said. "It means," Vethron said, "that the strongest Gorath warrior could sit on that chair without any problem." The Gorath are known as the mightiest species in the Concord. Rodriguez looked at the broken pieces on the floor. He was not a big man. He was average height, average build. Back on Earth, he was nothing special. "I guess I need to be more careful," he said. That night, Ambassador Tanaka requested a private meeting with Delegate Vethron. The two of them sat in the ambassador's room, a pot of tea between them. The tea was from Earth. Vethron held his cup with both hands like it was something precious. "Delegate," Tanaka said in her gentle voice, "I have noticed that the people on this station seem afraid of us. Can you tell me why?" Vethron was quiet for a long time. He took a sip of tea. Then he put the cup down and looked at the old woman from Earth. "Ambassador, when your species applied for membership in the Galactic Concord, we received your planetary data, information about your world, your biology, your history. We read it. And then we read it again because we thought there must be a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "Your gravity," Vethron said. The word came out like he was describing something horrible. "Your planet has a gravitational pull of 1 full standard unit. We have a name for worlds like that. Ambassador. We call them death worlds." Tanaka blinked. "I am not sure I understand." "Earth's gravity is just normal to us. That is what terrifies us," Vethron said. "The average gravity for a world that produces intelligent life is 0.31 standard units. My world, Valoria, has 0.22. We are considered a light gravity species. The Gorath, the strongest warriors in the galaxy, evolved on a world with 0.45. They are legendary for their power and endurance. They can lift things that no other species can lift. They can survive injuries that would kill anyone else." He paused. His hands were shaking again. "Your world is more than twice the gravity of the Gorath homeworld. By every model we have, by every scientific theory, intelligent life should not be able to evolve under such conditions. The energy required just to stand up, just to walk, just to pump blood through your bodies. It should be impossible." Tanaka sat back in her chair. She thought about Earth. She thought about mountains and oceans. She thought about storms and earthquakes. She thought about all the ways her world had tried to kill humanity and how humanity had survived anyway. "And yet," she said softly, "here we are." Vethron nodded. His skin was still pale. "Yes," he said, "here you are. Creatures from a death world, walking among us, breaking our furniture." He let out a strange sound that might have been a laugh. "Ambassador, your species should not exist, and yet you do. That is why everyone is afraid. Because if you can survive your world, then nothing in this galaxy can stop you." The tea grew cold. The stars turned slowly outside the window. "And Ambassador," Tanaka began to understand that humanity was not joining the galaxy as students. They were joining as something else entirely. The Ridaki had been watching the humans since they arrived. They were a species that lived on the edges of the law. Pirates, slavers, criminals. The Galactic Concord tolerated them because fighting them would cost too much money and too many lives. Their leader on the station was called Scrix. He was tall and thin, with a body covered in hard brown shell. His eyes were black and empty like holes in space. He'd been selling captured aliens as slaves for 50 years, and he had never been caught. When he heard about the humans, he saw an opportunity. "A new species," he said to his crew, "from a provisional world. No protection from the Concord. No allies, no friends." His mouth opened in what passed for a smile among his kind. "Easy prey." His crew agreed. They did not know about Earth's gravity. They had not read the reports. They only saw 5 soft-looking creatures walking around the station, and they saw money. Lots of money. The plan was simple. Wait for some of the humans to be alone. Capture them. Take them to a hidden ship. Sell them to the highest bidder. Species from new worlds always sold well. Collectors would pay a fortune for something exotic. The perfect moment came on the 8th day. Ambassador Tanaka and Lieutenant Chen were inspecting Earth's trade goods in Loading Bay 7. The bay was large and mostly empty. Crates of human products sat in neat rows. Coffee, chocolate, spices, things that the humans hoped would be popular in galactic markets. The two women were alone except for a single Valorian worker who was updating inventory records. Scrix made his move. 12 Rethaki raiders came through the door with weapons drawn. They moved fast, surrounding the bay in seconds. The Valorian workers screamed and ran for cover behind a stack of crates. "Do not move," Scrix said to the humans. He held a neural disruptor in his claw. It was a weapon that could knock out any species with a single shot. "Surrender quietly, and no one gets hurt." Ambassador Tanaka raised her hand slowly. She was old and small. She knew she was no fighter. But Lieutenant Chen was different. Chen did not raise her hands. She did not surrender. She looked at the 12 armed raiders, and she calculated. 12 enemies, 1 weapon each. Range of about 30 feet. The neural disruptors needed half a second to charge between shots. Half a second was a very long time. "Lieutenant," Tanaka said quietly, "be careful." "Always am," Chen replied. Scrix did not like how calm the human woman looked. He pointed his weapon at her. "I said surrender. Do not make me hurt you." "You could try," Chen said. Her voice was flat, bored almost. One of the other raiders laughed. It was a clicking sound, like stones hitting together. "This little thing thinks she can fight us? There are 12 of us. We are Ithaki warriors. Our shells can stop plasma fire. What can one soft human do?" Chun moved Dot to the humans in the room. She simply stepped forward quickly. Her right hand shot out and grabbed Scrix's weapon arm. She twisted Dot to everyone else. She was a blur. The crack of breaking shell echoed through the loading bay. It was a horrible sound, like thick ice breaking under heavy weight. Scrix screamed. It was a high, terrible sound that none of his crew had ever heard before. Chun looked down at her hand. She was holding something. It took her a moment to realize what it was. She was holding Scrix's arm. She had pulled it off. "Oh," she said. Her voice was small. "Oh no, I did not mean to do that." Scrix fell to the ground, green blood pumping from the place where his arm used to be. His crew stared at the human woman. She was still holding their leader's arm. She looked more upset than they did. "I used minimal force," Chun said to Ambassador Tanaka. "I swear I did. His shell was supposed to stop plasma fire. How was I supposed to know it would just come off?" One of the raiders dropped his weapon. It clattered on the metal floor. "Monster," he whispered. "She is a monster." And then they ran. All 11 remaining Rithaki turned and ran for the door. They pushed each other. They climbed over each other. One of them was trampled by his own friends in their rush to escape. They did not stop to help their fallen leader. They did not stop for anything. They just ran. Chun stood in the middle of the loading bay, still holding the arm. Scrix was whimpering on the ground. Ambassador Tanaka walked over and gently took the arm from Chun's hand. "We should probably call for medical help," the old woman said calmly. "Yes, we should." Chun was staring at her hands. "I really did try to be gentle. Back home, I could have grabbed someone like that, and it would have just hurt them a little. I did not think his arm would just come off. Different gravity," Tanaka said. "Different bodies. Our normal is their impossible." Station security arrived 10 minutes later. They found the Valorian workers still hiding behind the crates. They found Scrix unconscious from blood loss, his severed arm placed neatly beside him. And they found 2 human women sitting on a crate, drinking tea from a small container that Ambassador Tanaka always carried with her. "What happened here?" the security chief demanded. "We were attacked by pirates," Tanaka said. "Lieutenant Chun defended us." The security chief looked at Chun. Then he looked at Scrix. Then he looked back at Chun. You did this? Just you? Against 12 armed Rithaki raiders? Yes. With your bare hands? Chun held up her hands. They were small and soft-looking. There was no green blood on them. She had wiped them clean. It was an accident, she said. I grabbed too hard. The security chief was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke into his communication device. This is Chief Veltar. I need a medical team at Loading Bay 7. One injured pirate. Also, he paused. Also, please update the threat assessment for all Terran nationals on the station. They are to be classified as extremely dangerous. Do not approach. Do not touch. Do not threaten. What threat level? The voice on the other end asked. The chief looked at Lieutenant Chun. She was small. She looked soft. She was drinking tea like nothing had happened. She had pulled off a Rithaki warrior's arm without even trying. Maximum, he said. Maximum threat level. 2 hours later, the footage had spread across the station. The attack, the grab, the arm coming off. The raiders running in terror. Everyone watched it. Everyone talked about it. The Valorian High Council held an emergency meeting. The Gorath military commander requested all files on human combat capabilities. The merchant guilds doubled their security. Not to protect against humans, but to protect themselves in case they accidentally offended one. And in her room, Lieutenant Chun sat on her bed and looked at her hands. She had always known she was strong. Back on Earth, she had been a soldier. She had trained hard. She had fought in battles. But she had never felt like a monster. Now she understood what they were. What all humans were. They were creatures from a world that should have killed them. They had survived not by hiding or running, but by becoming harder than their world. Their bones were stone. Their muscles were iron. Their hearts pumped fire. They were Death World, survivors, and the galaxy had no idea what that really meant. Not yet. The days after the first meeting were strange for the humans. They tried to go about their business. They attended meetings. They toured the station. They smiled and shook hands and said all the right things. But everywhere they went, the aliens watched them with wide eyes. Dr. Samuel Okonkwo spent most of his time in the station's medical center. The Valorian doctors had invited him to share information about human biology. What was supposed to be a simple exchange of knowledge turned into something else. The head of the medical center was a Valorian named Dr. Thalassa. She was older than Vethron, with darker patterns under her skin. She had studied alien life for 200 years. She thought she had seen everything. She was wrong. Let me make sure I understand, she said, looking at the data on her screen. Your bones are made of calcium phosphate in a crystal structure. That is correct, Okonkwo said. And they are solid? Not hollow? Yes, solid bones. Dr. Thalassa made a note on her pad. Her hand was not steady. Most species have hollow bones, she said. It saves weight. It makes movement easier. Solid bones are only found in deep-sea creatures that live under extreme pressure. And in humans. We also have very dense muscles, Okonkwo said. He was starting to enjoy this a little. Our muscle fibers are packed tightly together. This gives us strength and endurance. I can see that. The Valorian doctor pulled up a comparison chart. This is a scan of a Gorath warrior's arm. The Gorath are famous for their strength. They can lift objects that weigh as much as they do. This is considered remarkable. The image showed muscle tissue that was thick and impressive by galactic standards. Now, Dr. Thalassa continued. This is a scan of your arm. The arm of a scientist. Not a soldier. Not a manual laborer. Okonkwo looked at the screen. His muscle tissue was denser than the Gorath warriors. Much denser. The fibers were packed so tightly that the scan almost looked solid. By our measurements, the doctor said, You could lift approximately 4 times what a Goroth warrior can lift. And you are not even considered strong by your species standards. I am in good shape for a man my age, Okonkwo said. But no, I am not a strong man. Dr. Thalassa closed her eyes for a moment. She looked tired. What about your hearts? What about them? Your hearts pump blood at a pressure that would rupture most species' blood vessels. Your blood carries an iron-based compound that would be toxic to many life forms. Your immune system attacks foreign organisms with such violence that it sometimes damages your own body in the process. She paused. And you consider this normal? Okonkwo thought about it. Yes, I suppose we do. While Dr. Okonkwo was making the medical staff nervous, Commander Vasquez was having her own adventures. She had been invited to observe a training session with the Goroth, the warrior species that was supposed to be the strongest in the galaxy. The Goroth looked like walking mountains. They were 7 feet tall and covered in thick gray hide. Their arms were as big as tree trunks. Their legs were like pillars. When they walked, the floor shook. The training room was large and filled with equipment. Weights of various sizes sat on racks along the wall. The Goroth trainees were lifting these weights, grunting with effort, building their legendary strength. Impressive, Vasquez said politely. The Goroth instructor, a scarred veteran named Krathvalum, nodded proudly. Our warriors train from childhood. By the time they reach adulthood, they can lift their own body weight over their heads. Vasquez did some quick math. A Goroth weighed about 300 pounds by Earth standards. Being able to lift that much was considered the peak of galactic physical achievement. Back on Earth, she had known powerlifters who could lift twice that. Would you like to try? Krathvalum asked. He pointed to a small weight at the end of the rack. It was the lightest one, meant for beginners. Vasquez walked over and picked it up. It felt like nothing. She could have held it all day. Perhaps something heavier? She suggested. Krathvalum pointed to the next weight. Vasquez picked it up with one hand. Still too light. This continued for several minutes. Vasquez moved down the rack, picking up heavier and heavier weights. The Goroth trainees stopped their own exercises to watch. Their small eyes grew wider with each weight she lifted. Finally, she reached the end of the rack. The heaviest weight was used by only the most elite Goroth warriors. Krathvalum himself could barely lift it. Vasquez picked it up. She held it over her head. She did not even breathe hard. Do you have anything heavier? She asked. The room was completely silent. Private Rodriguez had the hardest time adjusting to life on the station. He was young and full of energy, and he needed to exercise every day or he felt wrong. The problem was that the station's exercise equipment was not built for humans. He found a quiet corner of the station and started his morning workout. Push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups. On a bar that was meant for hanging equipment. Jogging in place. He did not know that there was a security camera watching him. Within an hour, a crowd had gathered outside the room. They watched through the window as the human moved at speeds they could not believe. When he did pull-ups with one arm, someone in the crowd fainted. When he started doing jumping exercises, moving his entire body up and down like it weighed nothing, a security team was called. Is he attacking something? The security chief asked. No, his assistant said. According to my research, this is something humans call exercise. They do it for fun. For fun? Yes. They damage their bodies on purpose, and then their bodies repair themselves stronger than before. They call this training. The security chief was quiet for a long moment. They damage themselves to get stronger? Yes. And their bodies just fix it? Yes. The security chief watched Rodriguez finish his workout with a series of stretches that bent his body in ways that should have broken bones. I need a drink, he said. That evening, The human delegation gathered for dinner. Ambassador Tanaka had prepared a simple meal from their supplies: rice and vegetables and grilled fish. Nothing special by Earth standards. "I think we need to talk about what is happening," she said. Everyone nodded. They had all had strange experiences that day. "We are not what they expected," Lieutenant Chun said. "They thought we would be weak, fragile. They thought they would have to protect us. Instead, they are afraid of us," Vasquez added. "The Gorath instructor asked me if all humans were as strong as me. I told him I was just average." "He looked like he was going to cry," Rodriguez said. Ambassador Tanaka smiled, but there was worry in her eyes. "We need to be careful. Fear can turn into hate very easily. We do not want to be seen as monsters. What do you suggest?" Okonkwo asked. "We show them who we really are. Yes, we are strong. Yes, we come from a hard world. But we are also kind. We are also gentle. We help those who need help. That is what makes humans special. Not just our strength, but what we choose to do with it." The others nodded. They understood, but none of them knew that their chance to show the galaxy what humans were really made of was coming sooner than they expected. In the dark corners of the station, dangerous eyes were watching, and plans were being made. Plans that would soon go very, very wrong for everyone except the humans. The footage of Loading Bay 7 spread like fire through dry grass. Every ship that left Valoria Station carried copies. Every communication network buzzed with the news. Within one galactic week, the story of the human woman had reached every corner of civilized space. But the story changed as it traveled on by the time it reached the outer worlds. Lieutenant Chun had not just pulled off one arm. She had torn apart all 12 raiders with her bare hands. She had laughed while doing it. She had eaten their flesh and drunk their blood. None of this was true, of course. Chun had felt sick for days after the incident. She had apologized to everyone who would listen. She had even sent a message to Scrix's family, expressing her regret. But the galaxy did not care about the truth. The galaxy cared about the legend dot, and the legend said that humans were monsters. The effects were immediate. On Valoria Station, merchants suddenly found reasons to give humans special discounts. A shopkeeper who had been rude to Private Rodriguez one day appeared at his door the next morning with gifts and apologies. A restaurant owner offered the human delegation free meals for life. "This is strange," Rodriguez said, looking at the pile of presents in his room. "I did not ask for any of this." "They are afraid," Commander Vasquez said. "They think if they make us angry, we will do to them what Chun did to the pirates." "But I would never hurt anyone," Rodriguez protested. "I am not a violent person. They do not know that. They only know what they saw in that video." The Gorath were affected most of all. For thousands of years, they had been the strength of the galactic concord. They were the warriors, the protectors, the ones that other species called when there was danger. Their entire culture was built around being the strongest. Now they had seen a small human woman pull apart a Rethaki like it was made of paper. General Krathvalum, the same instructor who had watched Vasquez lift his heaviest weights, requested a formal meeting with the human delegation. He brought 10 of his best warriors with him. They stood in a line, their massive bodies filling the room, and they bowed. Gorath never bowed. "We have come to learn," Krathvalum said. His voice was humble. This was not easy for him. "We wish to understand how your species became so powerful. We wish to train alongside you, if you will permit it." Commander Vasquez thought about it. This was a delicate moment. If she refused, the Gorath might feel insulted. If she accepted, they might be humiliated by what they saw. "You are welcome to observe our training," she said carefully. "But I must warn you, What we consider normal exercise may seem extreme to you. We are Garth, Crathalum said with a flash of pride. We can handle extreme. He was wrong. The next morning, Private Rodriguez did his usual workout while the Gorath watched. He started with stretches, bending his body in ways that made the warriors wince. Then he did push-ups, 100 of them, fast and smooth. The Gorath counted along silently. Then came the pull-ups. Rodriguez jumped up and grabbed a bar. He had tied a bag of weights to his belt. It was about 50 kilograms, roughly 110 pounds. To him, this was light, a warm-up weight. He began to pull himself up. 1, 2, 3. He kept going. His arms moved like machines. His breathing stayed steady. The Gorath watched in silence. They could not lift 50 kilograms easily. Certainly not while hanging from a bar. Certainly not for dozens of repetitions. At 50 pull-ups. Rodriguez switched to one-arm pull dash-ups. At this point, 3 of the Gorath had to be taken to the medical bay. They had gone into shock. Their minds could not accept what their eyes were seeing. Is he a normal human? Crathalum asked Commander Vasquez. His voice was weak. Below average, actually, Vasquez said. Back home, Rodriguez was in the bottom half of his training group. There are humans who are much stronger than him. Crathalum made a strange sound. It might have been a whimper. While the warriors were learning hard truths about physical strength, Dr. Okonkwo was giving a lecture to the station's scientific community. The room was packed. Scientists from 15 different species had come to hear about human biology. Okonkwo started simple. He talked about Earth, its gravity, its weather, its many dangers. Our world has tried to kill us in many ways, he explained. Extreme temperatures, violent storms, predators, diseases, natural disasters. We have faced them all, and we have survived them all. He showed pictures. Humans climbing mountains. Humans swimming in cold oceans. Humans running through deserts. Humans living in frozen wastelands. We adapt, he said. That is our greatest gift. Put us in any environment, and we find a way to survive. A scientist in the audience raised a tentacle. But how do you heal? We have seen your medical records. You break bones. You tear muscles. You damage your bodies constantly. How are you still alive? Okonkwo smiled. This was his favorite part. We heal, he said. When we break a bone, it repairs itself. The new bone is often stronger than the old one. When we tear a muscle, it rebuilds. Bigger, stronger. This is how we train. We damage ourselves on purpose, and we let our bodies fix the damage. We come back harder than before. The room was silent. Also, Okonkwo continued, we have something called pain tolerance. Our world hurt us so much during our evolution that we learn to function while in pain. We can be injured badly and still keep fighting. We can be sick and still keep working. Pain does not stop us. It only makes us angry. A Valorian scientist in the front row stood up. Her skin was very pale. Dr. Okonkwo, she said, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Of course. On your world, there is a creature called a human. It lives in full gravity. It survives extreme temperatures. It heals from injuries that would kill other species. It can run for hours without stopping. It can lift several times its own weight. It processes toxins that would poison most life forms. She paused. Her voice was shaking. Dr. Okonkwo, on any other world, a creature like this would be classified as an apex predator. A top-level dangerous animal. Something to be feared and avoided. But you are saying that this creature is also intelligent? That it builds cities and writes poetry and feels love? Okonkwo nodded. Yes, that is exactly what I am saying. How? The scientist's voice cracked. How can something so dangerous also be so civilized? It was a good question. Okonkwo had thought about it many times. Because we had to be, he said finally. Our world was so hard that we could not survive alone. We had to work together. We had to care for each other. We had to build communities and cultures and societies. The same gravity that made our bodies strong also made our bonds tight. We are dangerous, yes, but we are also kind. We love deeply. We protect fiercely. We build families and friendships that last for generations. He looked around the room at all the frightened faces. You see monsters when you look at us, but we see something different when we look in the mirror. We see survivors. We see builders. We see dreamers. Our world tried to kill us, and we refused to die. That does not make us monsters. It makes us human. The lecture ended in silence. No one knew what to say. But that night, something changed on Valoria Station. The fear was still there. The legends were still spreading. But now there was something else mixed in. Curiosity. And maybe, just maybe, a little bit of hope. Because if creatures from a death world could also be kind, then maybe the galaxy was not as dark as everyone thought. Maybe there was still room for friendship between the stars. 3 months passed since the humans first arrived at Valoria Station. In that time, everything changed. The formal ceremony to welcome Earth into the Galactic Concord was unlike anything that had come before. The Great Hall was filled with representatives from 47 species. They sat in rows that curved around a central stage. Lights of every color floated through the air. Music played softly from hidden speakers. And in the middle of it all stood 5 humans. Ambassador Yuki Tanaka walked to the podium. She was small and old, her gray hair pulled back in a simple knot. She looked out at the sea of alien faces and smiled. "Thank you for welcoming us," she said. Her voice was calm and warm. "When we left Earth, we did not know what we would find among the stars. We hoped for friends. We hoped for knowledge. We hoped for a place in the great family of intelligent life." She paused. "What we found was fear. You looked at us and saw monsters from a death world. You saw creatures that should not exist. You saw danger. The room was very quiet. And you were not entirely wrong. Our world is dangerous. Our bodies are weapons that we did not choose to have. We are strong in ways that we never fully understood. Until we met you." She looked down at her. Hands, small, wrinkled. The hands of an old woman who had spent her life talking instead of fighting. But strength is not the same as violence. Power is not the same as cruelty. The same gravity that made our bones hard also made us humble. Because we know what it is to struggle. We know what it is to suffer. We know what it is to stand at the edge of death and refuse to fall. She looked up again. That is what we bring to the Galactic Concord. Not conquest. Not war. But the will to survive. And the wisdom to know that survival means nothing if you face it alone. The applause started slowly. 1 pair of hands. Then 2. Then a dozen. And then the whole room was filled with sound. Species that had been afraid to look at humans were now standing and cheering. It was a beginning. After the ceremony, life continued. But it was different now. The Rithaki Syndicate dissolved within the year. Pirates and slavers across the galaxy suddenly found that their targets were willing to ask humans for help. And humans said yes. Ships flew from Earth to distant worlds, carrying not weapons, but volunteers. Young humans who wanted to help, who wanted to protect. Piracy dropped by 94%. The Goreth changed too. They did not stop being warriors, but they stopped being alone. Human trainers came to their worlds and taught them new techniques. Human soldiers stood beside them in battle. The two species found that they had much in common. They both understood the joy of testing your limits. They both knew the pride of protecting others. "You are strange creatures," General Krathvolum said to Commander Vasquez during a joint training exercise. "You are stronger than us. You could rule us. You could crush us. But instead you teach us. You help us grow stronger." Vasquez smiled. "That is what friends do." The general thought about this for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "I think I am beginning to understand." Dr. Okonkwo stayed on Valoria Station and became the galaxy's leading expert on human biology. Scientists from 100 worlds came to study with him. He taught them about evolution, about adaptation, about the amazing things that life could accomplish when it refused to give up. But his most important lesson was not about science. "Every species thinks they are alone," he would tell his students. "They think no one else understands their struggles, their pain, their fear. But the truth is that all intelligent life has the same story. We all came from worlds that tried to kill us. We all survived by working together. We all carry the scars of our past inside us." He would look at his students then. Valorians with their thin bodies, Gorath with their thick hides, creatures of crystal and gas and light. "That is what connects us," he would say. "Not our differences, our similarities. We are all survivors. We are all fighters. And we are all looking for the same thing." "What is that?" a student asked once. "A family," Okonkwo said simply. "A place where we belong." Lieutenant Chen never fully got over the incident in Loading Bay 7. She still sometimes looked at her hands and remembered the feeling of the Rathaki's arm coming off. But she learned to use her strength in other ways. She became a search and rescue specialist. When disasters happened on alien worlds, she was often the first to respond. She pulled survivors from collapsed buildings. She swam through toxic waters to save drowning children. She carried the injured to safety when no one else could. The galaxy still told stories about the human who had torn apart a pirate. But now they also told stories about the human who had saved 1,000 lives. Both stories were about the same woman. Both stories were true. Private Rodriguez went home after the mission. He returned to his small town and his normal life. He got married. He had children. He grew old. But sometimes, late at night, he would look up at the stars and remember. He remembered walking through corridors while aliens pressed against the walls in fear. He remembered breaking furniture without meaning to. He remembered learning that he was a monster just by being born human. "What are you thinking about?" his wife would ask. "About how strange the universe is," he would say. "About how much we did not know about ourselves. About how our normal is their impossible." And he would smile and go to sleep, knowing that somewhere out there, humans were making the galaxy a little bit safer, a little bit kinder, a little bit more like Home. Commander Elena Vasquez became the first human admiral in the Galactic Defense Fleet. She spent her life building bridges between species. She negotiated peace treaties. She commanded missions that saved entire worlds. And when she was very old, she wrote a book about her experiences. The last chapter was called The Weight We Carry. "Humans are not better than other species," she wrote. "We are not chosen. We are not special. We are simply different. The gravity of our world shaped our bodies in ways that seem miraculous to others. But we had no choice in this. We were simply born into struggle and learned to push back. What makes us truly human is not our strength. It is what we choose to do with that strength. Every day, we make a decision. We can use our power to hurt, or we can use it to help. We can spread fear, or we can offer hope. We can conquer, or we can protect." The galaxy looked at us and saw monsters. But we looked at the galaxy and saw people who needed help. People who needed friends. People who were just as scared and confused as we were when we first walked among the stars. So we reached out our hands. Not to crush, not to take, but to lift, to carry, to support. That is what it means to be human. Not the strength in our bodies, but the kindness in our hearts. The gravity of our world pressed down on us for 1,000,000 years. It made us hard. It made us heavy. It made us dense. But it also taught us something important. The heavier the weight, the more you need others to help you carry it. The harder the struggle, the more precious each helping hand becomes. We are Death World survivors. We are creatures that should not exist. We are monsters in the eyes of a lighter galaxy. But we are also friends. We are helpers. We are the ones who stand between the weak and the dark. That is humanity's gift to the stars. Not our bodies. Our hearts. Not our power. Our love. The book became the most read text in galactic history. It was translated into 300 languages. Children on 1,000 worlds grew up reading about the humans who came from the Death World and chose to be kind on and somewhere on Earth. The sun set and rose as it always had. The gravity pulled down at one full standard unit. People were born, lived their lives, and died. They did not know that they were legends. They did not know that the galaxy trembled at the mention of their species. They were just humans, living their lives, carrying their weight, and looking up at the stars, dreaming of all the friends they had not met yet, all the worlds they could help, all the good they could do. The galaxy had expected. Conquerors from the Death World died instead. They got family died, and that made all the difference.